Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Women Like Me. I'm Julie Fairhurst. I'm a story coach and I'm the founder of Women Like Me. And today we are here with the fabulous Dana Cartwright. Now, Dana has written her story in the fifth book, From Lost to Living, Women Like Me. And Dana has quite the story to talk to us about today, but you can certainly read her story in the book. And she is in chapter 9 of the book. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dana, and then we'll just dive into her story. So Dana's, as I mentioned, she is in chapter 9, and her title of her story is called Obstacles, Endless and Impossible to Conquer. So you'll know what the title is all about when we start talking about her story. So I'll tell you a little bit about her. Dana was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and she now resides in Lee's Summit, which is a suburb of Kansas City. She lives with her husband of 31 years and her 15-year-old boy/girl twins, and their multicolored Havanese. Havanese. Okay, Havanese. Havanese. Is that Cuba? A Cuban dog?
It's the dog of Cuba.
Oh, yeah, okay. Hazel, and you love your life. She's a registered and licensed dietitian by trade and currently uses her knowledge and skills as a network marketing professional for a wellness company specializing in nutrigenomics. Did I get that right? Oh, good for me. Okay. She loves teaching and health and prevention. She's passionate about helping people, and she loves to help them see the small tweaks in their health that can create big peaks in the focus of their energy. She is super passionate about connections, connecting information to people and connecting people to people. She loves helping humans and animals in any capacity, and it's what really warms her heart and fills her soul. She finds people fascinating and always seeks to find the authentic self in others because that's where their best stories and their lessons lie. She believes that we are here on earth to be together, to help each other to grow into the best possible versions of ourselves. And she has learned through her many obstacles that there are always solutions to every obstacle, and that obstacles precede tremendous growth. So thank you so much, Dana, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for this amazing opportunity. It was a great experience. So thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. So let's dive right into your story here. I was going through it again, and I just wanted to touch on a few things. And on the first page of your story, I remember reading this for the first time and then reading it again, and I thought this would be a great place to start. It just really shows the readers the crash that came in your life, just a tremendous grief you were dealing with. So I'll just touch on it, and then maybe we can talk about it a bit. As I knelt in a ditch on the side of a neighboring road, clutching my shattered heart and sobbing, I realized how powerful thoughts were and how deep the levels of grief run. I knew that intense pain from my broken heart, my best friend's passing at age 34, my years of infertility, 3 natural miscarriages, and my 7-year-old niece suffering a brainstem stroke had all taken their toll. Wow. Like, that is just, when you read that, it's like, sorry. When you read that, it just, it's so much to, like, just overwhelming. I can't even imagine how you could have been dealing with that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what was going on at that time?
Yeah, it was a lot to handle, but as I wrote in the story, I also had such a solid foundation. So even though I was dealing with a lot, my mom always taught me, and I I use this over and over, and still to this day, there's always a reason for everything. I mean, when I was little and it didn't make sense and I couldn't figure it out, she's like, it's okay. There's always a reason for everything, and we don't always understand it.
Yeah.
And so going through just what you described, everything, I always had in the back of my mind, but there's always a reason. And I'll be showing that reason at some point,
Right.
so that kept me going. And I just had such a supportive, I had a great childhood. I just had a wonderful childhood and a wonderful high school, and went to college and met my husband, and within the first year of college, and we were best friends.
Aww.
And I just had a lot of so many positives. And like I describe it in the book, it's just this, I haven't faced this intense grief before, because everything just kind of flowed, and everything wasn't perfect, but for the most part, it was great. And to come up against this, I'm like, you just had to brace yourself. And I'm like, okay, here we go. This is life. And there were just, but it just kept coming. Just kept coming. And that's when I just, with my best friend.
We're only human. We can only take so much.
Yes. And it all was happening at once. And so, to experience that intense grief, but like I wrote in the book, it was blanketed with this incredible love. So I was just surrounded, thank goodness, but still experiencing grief. And I didn't realize until I fell in that ditch. It was the pain in my heart. It doubled me over. I was just crying, thinking about Missy's husband and thinking about her boys. And I just started crying. And then I knew I didn't have a heart attack, because I was, in my 30s, but I didn't anticipate. I knew when I was sitting there, it was grief. And I'm like, wow, this is a broken heart. This is what a broken heart feels like. And I just sat there for a long time. Thank goodness nobody stopped. I just wanted to process that, and this is the first time that I realized how incredibly powerful your thoughts are.
Right.
They're just incredibly powerful, that they could create physical pain like that. So,
and the emotion that comes with it, right? Like, wow, because I can just see you like jogging away, and then just bang, you're down.
Right, doubled over. It just like pierced my heart, doubled over, and but I, like I said, I knew right away. I'm like, this is grief. This is real.
Yeah.
This is
wow.
grief.
Wow.
But,
well, sorry, I just, even the first time I read your story, and I read that first page of your story, it touched me. And so anyway, okay, let's go on to the next little bit that I'd love to touch on, because what you say here is the days all blurred into one another, and it became increasingly difficult to balance it all. The obstacles to overcome seemed endless and impossible. And because I've never been in such an overwhelming emotional place, I never realized I was an emotional eater. And so at that time, you were working as a registered dietitian. And now now you're overeating, and you're trying to help people to be healthy with their eating habits.
Right. Yeah, that was another lesson. I was teaching a cardiac rehab class with an exercise physiologist, and I think at the time I was 15 pounds overweight, and it doesn't seem that much, but as a registered dietitian, as I wrote, there's an underlying expectation,
Yes.
that you need to project health. And I just didn't feel, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I
Right.
was up there. I wasn't giving, it's important for me to give people my best. What fills my soul and what keeps me going is to help others and to give them my best. And like I said, like in the intro, we're all here. We all have different gifts, and not everybody in this world can do everything.
Right.
So we're interconnected, and for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yes.
And I have gifts that you don't have. You have gifts that I don't have, and if we share them, that's the beauty of, I think, this life. So I
Yeah.
always try to give, but goodness, my best friend just died at 34, and they didn't realize that, and
No.
nor did they need to know.
No, of
It
course.
was,
Of course.
yes, they were there for a reason. They were there for their journey. And so that was really interesting and eye-opening, especially as a registered dietitian,
Yeah.
because and what came of that, the intense growth that came is, I can totally relate to people now. Like, I
Yeah.
thought I could before as a dietitian, but I never, if I gained a little bit of weight, I would just go for a run. A couple of days later, I'd be back in check. But
Yes.
this was different. This
Yeah.
was eating for comfort,
Yeah.
um, totally eating different, which didn't make me feel good. It was just a cycle that I
Hmm.
woke up and I'm like, how did I get here? And
Yeah.
you can always relate that back to grief. You can always
Yeah.
relate it back. And I'm like, oh, the grief again.
Yeah.
There.
Well, I guess it's like, I guess it's like it's it's like someone who turns to drugs or someone who turns to drinking or someone who turns to gambling.
Right.
It's a coping mechanism.
It is.
Not
It is.
always healthy ones, but I guess we do what we need to do in times of when we don't know what else to do. I don't know,
Right.
it's
Well, and one thing that I did learn through this is grieve. The world doesn't stop for you to grieve.
no,
The world
no,
does not stop. You get a very short window of time to pull yourself together. And I think
yeah,
that's why people do go to those coping mechanisms, because life keeps continuing.
yes,
And unless you've experienced that grief on that level, I felt like I was on a different level. I'm not saying higher, lower,
no,
anything.
no,
I just
no,
felt
no,
like I was on a different plane.
yes,
And people would talk to me, and I'm like, it would take my brain a little bit to process
yeah,
because of this overwhelming,
yeah.
grief. And
You
it
know,
was
I,
really interesting.
I understand a little bit of what you're talking about because I've had family members who have passed away, and
Mhm.
but I remember when my father died, and I remember thinking people are just driving. Like it was weird.
Right,
People like they're just driving.
right,
They don't know what's happened. They don't know what's going on. They're driving and
right.
I don't know. That I just remember watching people thinking you're just wandering down the street. But so I know what you mean by being in that different kind of place. You're just like, yeah, the
Right.
world is just moving.
Exactly. And you didn't want to move. You just wanted to
Yeah.
stop and
Yeah.
heal, and it doesn't.
No.
And so I think that overeating was just a way to get
Yeah.
me, to the next place. So,
No, for sure, for sure. And yeah, I did make a note in here when you did comment and you said I felt like a complete imposter. And that must have been, that must have been hard for you because somebody who wants to to help others and give your all, and you've always done, stood up and put your best foot forward, all of a sudden you're feeling like an imposter.
Right.
That must have brought on another level of grief or guilt and maybe some shame. I don't know, because so it's just like, I just feel like you were just getting buried and buried and buried with just everything that was happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I did. And yes, that was very hard for me. But again, it's with that becomes tremendous growth. I just catapulted in my growth from all that. So
yes. Well, and that's the key, right? That's what I believe, is that we all are going to have our tough times in the world. Right. And the key is not to come out of it, not to stay there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was hard, and that takes time, and it just, everybody processes in a different way. And through my best friend's passing, a really good, grade school group of friends, I saw them go through the grieving process. And the gift that Missy had given me is everybody grieves in a different way. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a tremendous, gift, because I've been able to use it. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. It's your journey and other people's journeys, and you just respect that. So
let's just shift a little bit here.
Okay.
I've got this other paragraph in your story that I wanted to just let the reader, or let the people viewing know about it, and then I would love to just get your comment on it. And I think it really, I think a lot of women deal with this.
Okay.
So you say, each time the mom would be walking so proud and looking at me as if to say, "Look at my beautiful baby," I could never muster the strength to stop and look. I would spot the beaming mom from the distance and feel my heart sink again. It was all I could do to smile as I passed her, holding back tears as I continued to run. Then on top of the sadness came guilt. Guilt that I didn't stop to admire the newborn. Guilt that I didn't share the sweet mama's happiness. I wanted to. However, profound grief was in the driver's seat. Thoughts fluctuated between guilt and grief for the remainder of the run.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So go ahead.
I didn't put in the book in the story, but my husband and I went through 11 years of infertility.
Wow.
So 11 years we did. And that's a long time.
That is a long time.
It's a long time, but again, he and I both always knew somehow, some way we were going to be parents. And that kept us going, and that kept us, and the verse that my mom always said, there's a reason. Now, where we are, they're 15 years old now looking back, I'm like, got it. I understand. But going through it was hard, and those runs were tough. They were tough, and because you just want, you just wanted to be a mom so bad, and I wanted my husband to be a father so bad. And the moms are beaming, they're glowing, they're just radiating as they should. And I had a radar for that. I would just look up, and I'm like, and I would have to brace myself. I would just have, and tears would always come, and it wasn't poor me. I didn't feel that. It was just, again, the grief of the loss.
Because you say in the book, I think you had 3 miscarriages as well.
3 natural. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was grieving. It's like,
yes, of course.
We were almost there. So, but yes, that was a whole nother level of grief. dealt
to
with.
do-
But then in two, just passing, I'm like, I can't stop.
No, of course. No,
I
absolutely.
couldn't do it because I
Yeah.
would break down. I would,
Yes.
I know I would lose it. And
Well, you have to protect yourself. And at the end of the day, they don't know how you're feeling. They didn't
right.
know how you were feeling, and they didn't take it as anything bad.
No,
But yeah, so it's but we have to protect our emotions, and if it means not stopping, it means not stopping, and
right.
just keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
You just pass it by. So, but
Yeah. So I also would like to talk to you about your friend Missy.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So you talk a lot about her in your story. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit?
Missy, yes. Missy was she was my best friend from grade school, from first grade, and incredible human being. And now I know, because she lived a very, very short time. So, but she was just amazing. Our conversation, she was way beyond her years, way beyond. And I could see it. I couldn't understand it, but I could see it. She was always our trendsetter as far as clothes in our group. And people would make fun of her. And sure enough, about 8 months later, they were wearing the same thing. And so she was just unique and incredible. And now I know why.
Yeah. So on top of everything else that you've been dealing with, the loss of her must have been very overwhelming.
That was, yes, it was. It was, I can't even describe. At 34, that's just not supposed to happen. She was my maid of honor. And I just remember she went to Cozumel, and her husband found the mole on her back. And she was working as a speech therapist at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. And so luckily she had that path, and she just got expedited through, the medical procedures and everything. And I remember she got it cut out, and we had our wedding dresses. I had a V in the back. And she's like, can you shorten that V, so nobody sees my scar? And I'm like, of course I will do that. Of course I can do that. But so I don't know. She was just so, just so incredible. And then, it was just, she came up to Kansas City to see me, and she was very, very tired. She goes, I don't know why I'm so tired, but we had an incredible visit, and that was our last really good visit. And so many gifts again. So many gifts. We got that time, and then during her passing, I just knew it metastasized to her liver, and that's when I knew. There was no turning back. It was inevitable. And but my husband and I were supposed to go on his company trip to Hawaii, and we had that week off. Again, an incredible gift that we already had that week off. She went downhill during that time, and I get to spend that entire, time partly with her until she passed, and then being able to plan her funeral, and being, a really good support to Dave, her husband. So again, intense grief, just blanketed with love. That's just how my story, whatever it was, that's how God presented it. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned through the grief. And I'm so grateful that he kind of protected that with so many good things.
You also mentioned in your story that you told your husband you were going to stop going to church for a while. What was the reason for that?
It was too much. It was
Oh,
just too, I just kept getting, just those are big things at
yes,
34. And it just seemed, again, endless. It's just like, okay, I'm going to keep going, boom. Okay, I'm going to keep going, boom. And it was
right,
not little things, these were
right.
big things.
Yes,
And I'm like, okay, I know there's a reason for everything, and I'm trying to do all the
yeah,
right things.
yeah,
And I just said, I was just wounded. My heart was just, it was just shattered.
yes, yeah,
And so I did. I'm glad I verbalized that,
yeah.
because he immediately said, he wasn't having it. He's like, but that's been your faith has been your rock. That has
Yeah,
been, in
yeah,
addition to me, because
yes,
he is such a great support. But he's
yeah,
like, you've always, leaned
yeah,
into your faith. And I'm like, not right now.
yeah.
Just,
Because on top of everything else that we've already talked about, we haven't discussed your niece, because your
yeah,
niece was also very, very ill at that same time frame.
right. A 7-year-old has this
Yeah.
stroke. A 7-year
Oh, yes,
stroke.
yes,
And I mean, how does that happen?
yeah,
Just how does that happen? And so just um, seeing my sister go through
yes,
all of that, she was amazing. Again, I just, it's just the pattern,
yes,
the
yeah,
gift in it is I got to see this incredible, I saw my mom and my
yeah,
sister, and, my mom was always so quiet, but she was a silent strength. And
right.
I saw that in my sister
Oh,
and everything. And my niece is just amazing.
yeah,
She made it through all of that, and she's just amazing too.
oh,
So again, it's that intense grief,
yes,
with I'm so grateful
yes,
that I was able to see that,
yes, yes,
that I was able to see the gifts, during those really intense times.
yes.
So,
Oh, absolutely. And it takes I can, I agree with you. There are gifts, and thank goodness you were able to see them. I think some people can't, or they won't, or they're just not able to. But
yeah,
but you're right. There's always gifts, and even in things that are tragic and sad.
right.
Yeah,
And that's where
yeah,
your growth, and going back to what my mom said, there's a
yeah,
reason, and the reason
yeah,
is it just the growth that I've experienced. And I put that in my story too,
yeah,
back to my faith. And that was very short-lived, that
yeah.
I was just a little wounded and needed just
Of course.
I wanted that world to stop. I wanted
Yes,
everything to stop so I could process.
yes,
And
yeah,
that's one thing I could control. It's just like, come on, how much,
yeah,
how much more? How much
yes,
more are we going to do this? Because
yes,
I just need a break. And
yeah,
why I thought taking a pause from faith and from God would be of benefit, I don't know. But
yeah.
I was wounded, and like I wrote in my
Of
book,
course.
I could see him, and I was grateful I could still see him,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to move to him, and I didn't want
No.
him to move to me. It's just like,
Yeah.
you just stay there where
Yeah.
I can see you, but just I don't want to talk to you. I want nothing to do with you. And I
Yeah.
knew enough to not turn my back totally on God.
Right.
That was never
Right.
even crossed my mind.
Yes.
Never, ever.
Yes.
But I think I just needed to breathe. I think I just
Yes.
needed, I'm like, I don't want to learn anything more. I
Yes.
don't want to process anything more. I think I reached my max.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, that was another coping skill that just
Yeah.
let me pause something. Maybe if I don't pay attention to you, you'll leave me be for a while.
Oh, yes.
and
Oh,
but that, thank goodness I did. I'm Catholic in
yes.
my faith, and I'm like, I need help here.
Yes. Yes.
Like the days did blur, and
Yes.
it was becoming harder for me to be positive, all the time. And so I'm like, I just need to, see if I'm headed in the right direction, or,
Yes.
why can't I close that gap? Why can I see God on that fence post,
Yeah.
but not want him closer? Because I know
Right.
you should be closer,
Yes.
but I didn't know how to bridge that. So I'm like, I tried all my tricks, and I'm
Oh.
like, it's not working. So I asked, and it was just such great confirmation. I don't know, God probably sent, that priest. We were connected for some reason, because he said all the right things.
Yes. Yes.
He's like,
yeah.
all the right things.
Yeah. And you talk about that in your story as well. So Dana, what do you think if someone was watching this right now and they're going through some battles that just keep hitting them, what would you say to them to help them along their way? Is there any advice you can give?
Sure.
I know there's lots of advice you can give, but what would you give?
My best advice would be, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And the best and kind of why I wrote this story to begin with is I've shared as different situations come up with friends or acquaintances. I've been able to share my parts of my story, and it did seem to help. And what I always say in that thread is, ask the questions. I never stopped asking questions. And it wasn't why me? It was more like, how do I do this? You're giving me this.
Yeah.
And this is so big. Help me get through. How do I get through this?
Right.
And so those were the questions, and just ask, where's my next step? I mean, I was always be like, okay, I'm at a wall. Okay, I need the next direction. I need the next step. And there's always answers. There's always solutions to problems. There's always answers to your questions.
Yeah.
But you have to be, and that's my advice, ask the questions, and you have to be able to listen. You have to give yourself space. The answers don't always just come. They do not. But I can tell you that they always do come. And they come in the most fascinating ways. It's just amazing if you're paying attention, and you just have to trust that that is your answer. Because whenever I did that, whenever it was just placed in front of me, and it's not on a silver platter, it does not come, because sometimes I would say, I'm not really great at listening right now. I remember I would say that. It's like, today you're going to have to just hit me over the head with a brick. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting the answers. I'm not understanding. And then if it wasn't a day or two later, it'd be like, boom, crystal clear right in front of me. So that's my best advice is, yes, this is hard. This life is tricky at times. But the tremendous growth, whatever you're facing, you can get through. Just ask the questions and listen for the answers, because they're always there, and you're not alone. And Julie, you doing the stories, that's another reason I wanted to write in it, is your passion's amazing, and what you're doing. Everybody has a story.
Everybody has one.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people don't think their stories are significant,
No,
but
they don't.
they are. Each
Yes.
and every story can help another person.
Absolutely.
And that's why I wanted to do it, because I've
Oh,
seen it in my own life, taking bits and pieces
yeah.
of my story when it was appropriate to share. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what an experience to be able to put it all together,
Yeah.
all my story in one place,
Yeah.
to where, even one person, and I know it's a
Yes.
cliche, but even if you just
No.
one person, it makes a difference.
Yes.
And what if my story was the answer to
Yes.
somebody's question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I have, over the years of doing this now, I have gotten just random messages on social media or in my email from women I don't know
Right.
saying, oh my goodness, I read so and so story, and this chapter or this paragraph just hit me and woke me up and made me go, like, get your rear in gear, like lots of those kinds of things. And
Right.
oh, I really related to so and so. So absolutely. Sometimes, it's not always, we don't always know the people we touch
Right.
or the difference that we're going to make in their life. We just don't know.
You don't know. And that, I think, is the incredible beauty of what you're doing. That's the fun part.
It is the fun part.
Don't know.
No.
But your story's out there.
Yes.
And you wrote it for a purpose.
Yes.
So even though we may never know the person it touches, it's going to touch somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And thank you so much for saying that, because anyone that's listening that might be thinking about that, oh, well, my story doesn't mean anything. Absolutely, it does, because there's all sorts of people in the world, and we all don't relate to everybody, but we relate to some people. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you're not going through the exact same thing,
yeah,
even if it's not even parallel, it can be your answer. It can be your answer. So, but yeah, it was fun. It was, I always had my story in my head.
Yeah.
And because I would pull it, whenever I could help somebody.
Yeah.
But to be able to pull it all together in one place was really healing. And I felt like I was pretty healed.
Yes.
But I even went through another round of healing, which surprised me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Well, you're so welcome, Dana. And thank you for saying all of that, because that just helps. Hopefully, I'm starting book 6, and I've had a few ladies that I don't know if it's fear or, for whatever reason, but they're like, oh, well, I'm going to wait. And even in this book, there were a few ladies I had to reel them in. Like, no. What do you mean you don't want? What do you mean?
Right.
So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it very much.
And if anybody's on the fence about writing, I think and I'm not just saying this, I really, even if you don't put it in a book, writing your story on paper is just an experience. I had to write and stop and write. I cried. It just is so, I can't describe it. Putting it on paper is a whole different level.
It's very therapeutic.
It is.
And for sure.
If you think you can't do it, you can. You definitely can do it. And your story is important. So, Julie, you're wonderful about guiding us through that.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so This is where you will find Dana's story. If you want to read the whole story, it's fabulous because we didn't touch on every single thing. She's got a lot more to talk about in her story. So it's Women Like Me, it's From Lost to Living. And so now that you've heard a bit of Dana's story, you know, From Lost to Living. That's, you know, and I was telling someone the other day, we don't come up with the subtitle of the book until after, and these aren't theme books, until after all of the stories are written. And then I go through them and I see if there's a similar feel for the book. And From Lost to Living is every single one of the ladies, the 11 ladies who wrote in this book. So thank you, Dana, and thank you for being willing to do this. I appreciate it so much. And we will talk again soon.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you,
And thanks
Dana.
for having me.
You're welcome.